and there's some people from other places as well. So welcome everyone for this really wonderful Hanukkah cook-along. Let me introduce Nancy Wolfson Moche. She is a nourishment counselor and certified macrobiotic counselor as well. She teaches health, wellness, culinary arts, and culinary medicine. She is an ordained Kohenet, Hebrew priestess, and she was an editor and writer on lifestyle magazines and digital platforms. She has a blog at, it's called, in all in one word, youarebecauseYouEat.com. And she has recently published a wonderful cookbook called Vegetables for Breakfast. Here we're
Oh,
both showing you. Yes, Nancy, you should show it on your big screen. So it's a lovely book. And one of the reasons for this presentation is to encourage people to buy the book for maybe for a Hanukkah present or for some other wonderful reason. And we're going to give you all the information in the chat later. She's offering very generously a 10% discount on everything in her shop, which includes gift boxes, books, cooking implements, and aprons, and we'll give you the code. And just thank you, Nancy, for doing this, for being so generous with your time.
thank you, Malka. Thank you so much for organizing this. And Malka copy edited the book, so with great care and generosity. So I thank you for that and for your support. Okay, so I don't know how many of you are cooking along, but I hope some of you will be. And tonight will be the 21st of Kislev, this night, which is fast approaching here. And as I'm sure many of you know, the Jewish day begins with the night before. So 4 days before the 25th of Kislev, which is the first day, the first night and first day of Hanukkah, because all Jewish holidays begin the night before. So the 25th of Kislev is the anniversary of the desecration of the temple in Jerusalem that happened between, I think, 166 BCE. And it's also the anniversary of the reconsecration once the Hasmonean tribe won the war. They reconsecrated the temple on that same day, which is also always very close to the winter solstice. Even though we have a lunar calendar, there seemed to be a connection with the solar calendar. So tonight, we're gonna make 4 recipes, 2 of them from my book, but all 4 really embody the festival of Hanukkah. So what does that mean? Foods or dishes that embody a festival, and specifically Hanukkah. So as Jews, we often eat foods that are symbolic, like apples dipped in honey on Rosh Hashanah to symbolize our wishes for a sweet year. Or they can also remind us of a story, like the matzah that we eat on Pesach, and the hamantashen that we eat on Purim, and the latkes that we eat on Hanukkah. So, so the latkes and any food fried in oil, different culinary traditions, different cultures have different traditions around which fried food they choose to eat. Remind us of the struggle of the Maccabees. They were of a priestly tribe, the Hasmoneans, that won the battle against Antiochus, the Hellenistic king of the Syrian branch of Alexander's Seleucid Empire. And they won in 166 BCE. And as I told you, they reconsecrated the temple in Jerusalem in 164. And there they found only 1 jar of oil that had been sealed by the priests. So they thought it would burn for 1 day. It was enough to burn for 1 day, but miraculously it burned for 8. So, so that's why we eat fried foods, to celebrate the miracle of the oil. But Rabbi Arthur Wasco teaches that it's also that this last symbol this last single bottle of oil symbolized the irreducible minimum of spiritual light and creativity within the Jewish people, still there even in the darkest moments of our history. So, so with God's help, that tiny amount could unfold into an infinite supply. And hence we celebrate 8 days of Hanukkah. 7 days there were 7 days of creation, and 8 is said to symbolize infinity. So, so we're going to make a latke, not a potato latke, because potatoes weren't around in the time of the Maccabees. The first latkes were actually cheese made by the Romans. We're not going to make a cheese latke either because it's not terribly healthy, but I do it some years. So we're going to make a really delicious latke from my book, made of Jerusalem artichoke, parsnip, and fennel, 3 seasonal winter vegetables. And then we're going to make a lemony yogurt sauce. So the tradition of eating dairy comes from another story, the story of Yehudit, which actually we always tell it at Hanukkah, but she didn't live at the same time as the Maccabees. She really lived about 400 years earlier. And the story of Yehudit is she was a fierce Jewish woman who made her way into the Assyrian general Holofernes' camp. She brought lots of cheeses and dairy that would make him really hungry. She fed him on the pretense that she's Jewish and we had different eating habits, so she needed to bring kosher cheeses. She fed him and slaked his thirst so that he drank lots of wine and fell asleep. And when he fell asleep, she cut off his head, put it in her picnic basket, and helped to win the war. So people say that's where the custom of eating dairy comes from. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a lemony yogurt sauce, a really simple sauce for the latkes. And I like to use a vegan yogurt that's non-dairy, but it's creamy and dairy-ish, so it qualifies. We're also going to make a green bean dish, a really simple and delicious green bean and orange dish. And then we're going to make gelt that sends a message. So, so let's start. We're going to start with the green bean dish. So it's really simple. It has like 4 ingredients. So if you're cooking along, I hope you've cleaned your green beans. We're going to, mine are all clean. We're going to prep them. So one thing I just want to show you about my mise en place is I always use these pop-up sponges, which you just pop in. They're available at Trader Joe's or on Amazon. You pop them into the water, maybe you can see it, and they pop up. The reason I like them is because they're not treated with any chemicals, and I use them to clean my board so that I always have a clean board when I'm working. So as you can see, it's popping up. I'm just gonna squeeze it out, and I use it to just keep my board really clean. It's a really important part of everything I cook. So now I'm going to take the green beans that I've cleaned, and I'm going to cut them into small pieces. And so for me, all of my cooking is sacred and symbolic. So I wanted these green beans to symbolize the Syrian army, Antiochus's army. So I'm cutting them into like 1 or 1.5 inch pieces. Setting them aside, and in this dish, the oranges, the citrus, the juicy citrus symbolizes the Maccabees, who were fewer in number, but juicier and fiercer, and so they triumphed. So once you have your beans cut, and you can let us know in the chat if I'm going too fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up a pan. In this case, I'm using a cast iron skillet, and I'm just going to turn on the flame, medium flame, and let the pan heat a bit, because these are kind of blistered. These are string beans that cook really fast in a nice hot pan. I'm going to use cooking chopsticks, which are tied together with a string. And they're a really good way to turn anything around in the pan to expose all sides of a vegetable or a seed or a nut to the heat. So I'm heating up the pan for about a minute or maybe a little less. And then I'm gonna pour just enough olive oil into the pan to cover it. So olive oil isn't something I ever use to fry because it has a very low smoke point. If it gets beyond 350 degrees, it becomes rancid. So you really, even though I know it's become somewhat of a symbol on Hanukkah, it's really important to use an oil with a higher smoke point for frying, for deep frying, like the latkes we're gonna make. But for this, it's gonna be a quick saute. So I'm just gonna test my pan. And once it feels nice and warm, I'm going to pour the olive oil in just to cover. And then we're gonna cook the green beans really, really, really quickly. So I'm just pouring enough olive oil to cover the bottom of the pan. And I'm just gonna swill it around so that it covers the whole surface of the pan. And then I'm gonna take my, can everybody see my pan okay, or are you too far away? Then I'm just gonna put the green beans in. I'm gonna put one in to test it the way you might test oil when you're making popcorn. And it doesn't seem quite hot enough, so I'm gonna give it another minute. You really want the string beans to sizzle. And another thing I teach when I teach latkes is that on Hanukkah, we want to eat foods that sizzle because of the Maccabees and the way they sizzled. So now this green bean is starting to sizzle, and I'm going to add the rest, just gently urging them into the pan. Oops, lost a few. And then I'm just going to quick saute them. You want them to be heated on all sides. And sometimes, depending upon your taste, some people like them to be a little bit golden brown, like my family loves them to be that way. So, so maybe you can hear the sizzle. They're sizzling really, really nicely. And as they sizzle, I'm going to take an orange, a mandarin orange, and just peel it and section it. And we're going to garnish the dish with just a little bit of sea salt. I like to use a medium grade sea salt. You can use a Himalayan pink salt for this. I have my compost under here. So I'm just gonna section the orange and then cut the sections in half. This is a Satsuma mandarin. Really, really delicious and sweet. So I'm gonna clean my knife after having cut the green beans. And I'm just gonna cut this mandarin orange into small sections. And now I'm gonna check my beans. They look pretty perfect. Yep. So I'm gonna turn them off. And I'm going to place them in a bowl. Okay, there you go. Can you see them? Yep. So what happens when you quick saute is you want, the vegetables should become a much more vibrant, bright color, in this case, green. That's bringing all the nutrients to the surface of the vegetable, which makes them more accessible and more digestible. And then I'm just gonna garnish it with some of these orange pieces, actually all of them. And then I'm going to use a little bit of sea salt, of finishing salt, and just drizzle, just kind of sprinkle it on top. So there's the dish, really, really fast. So this is, my book is about eating vegetables for breakfast. And I know that most people don't want to spend a lot of time on breakfast. So this is like a really, really quick, delicious dish. The reason we did it first is because it's delicious hot, but it's also delicious at room temperature. So I'm just gonna set it aside and and clean my board. And the next thing we're gonna make is the yogurt sauce for the latkes, because, oops, I think we didn't start the recording. Okay.
I'm recording, Nancy.
Oh, you are, okay, okay. It says paused on mine.
Right.
Okay, you sure it's working?
Yes, it's recording.
Oh, it is. Okay, great.
It's
So I'm
recording,
taking
y'all
my
see the
board
board.
and my knife, even though we're not going to need my knife for this, just for a moment, I will. And I'm going to take my yogurt. I'm using this Chobani coconut yogurt. It's really delicious with cashew yogurt. And I'm going to just take a prep bowl.
The picture shows you.
Sorry.
You see that?
Um,
And you're only looking at probably half the saddle or three quarters of
Please
it.
mute,
Wait,
please
hello?
mute yourself. Please mute yourself.
okay.
Everyone should mute themselves. Sorry for this interruption.
So the recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of yogurt. So I'm going to measure a half and then a half of a half. Just place it in the bowl. And then it's just simply 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. So I'm going to cut my lemon. I really love this old-fashioned glass lemon squeezer. I find it really easy to use and really easy to measure. So it's gonna take probably just a half of of this lemon. So I'm measuring 1, 2. Perfect. And now I'm gonna whisk them together. So whisking is kind of counterintuitive, but it works better when you go kind of back, forth, rather than around and around. I do kind of a combination. So we really want to integrate the lemon and the yogurt so that it just becomes a really smooth, creamy sauce, which is the way I like to eat. Anytime we eat dairy symbolically for a Jewish holiday, like on Shavuot, I like to think of it more as anything creamy and soft than that it has to be particularly dairy. So there you go. I think you can see it. I'm just going to place it into a bowl for serving. Take a rubber spatula, and can you all see me? I think I'll just give you a better view of my workspace. So I'm just gonna place the sauce into the bowl. And now it's gonna be ready to serve. Now, if you want it to be, you can taste it. If you want it to be a little more lemony, you could add a little bit of lemon zest on top. Oh my gosh, so delicious. So mine is really perfect. You could also add a tiny bit of salt, but the latkes are going to be salty, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to put a spoon in there and set it off to the side, ready to serve with the latkes. So we have 2 dishes down, and now we're going to start on the latkes. So the latkes are made, I'm cleaning my board and cleaning my knife. So the latkes are made with, as I said, 3 variations of root vegetables. The Jerusalem artichoke is technically a tuber. So it is the tuber of a specific species of sunflower that grows in Italy. That's Italian at its root. And that's how Jerusalem artichoke was named Jerusalem artichoke. It has nothing to do with Jerusalem and nothing to do with artichokes. But I lived for 12 years in Italy, and sunflower in Italian is called girasole, which means literally turn to the sun. So girasole, if you say it many times, can begin to sound like Jerusalem. And these tubers kind of have the flavor of an artichoke. So they became known as Jerusalem artichokes. They're also called sunchokes and sun roots, even though, as I said, technically they're a tuber. So they're very gnarled looking. I got several different sizes. Sometimes they're even as small as this. And you can see they have a kind of a tough skin that's darker than the inside. I peeled most of it. And these are great for your pancreas. They're really good for diabetics. They have inulin in them, which is a prebiotic. And a prebiotic is different from a probiotic. A prebiotic actually nourishes the good bacteria in your gut. So these are really important foods to eat. And we're also using a parsnip. So this is a nice big parsnip. Parsnip is a root vegetable. It's in the carrot family. And they actually get sweeter after the first frost. So we've had a frost here. And then we're using fennel, which has become a really fashionable bulbous vegetable of late, but it used to be just growing along the sides of the roads in Italy. And when I went to visit one of the largest Italian communities in Italy, in Pitigliano, which is where Edda Servi Macklin, who wrote some beautiful books on Jewish Italian cooking, it's where she grew up. Her father was the rabbi. I learned that fennel, or finocchio in Italian, was something that Jews who didn't have a lot of money used to just forage and find along the sides of the road and put into their cooking, because it has this flavor of licorice. And then suddenly people began to pick up on it, and it became a very trendy vegetable by the time I got there in the 1990s. So the fennel, this is a really balanced dish, because the parsnip is a root vegetable which goes way down into the earth, so it's very grounding. The Jerusalem artichokes are tubers, which are kind of the next step up, closer to the root, closer to the surface of the soil, and the fennel sits right on the soil. So what we're going to do is we're going to blend them into really tiny shreds. So I like to use my bullet for this. So first I'm going to take the parsnip. I already did a little parsnip because I was testing this, so I'm not going to use too much of this. I might want to mute myself while I turn this on. It's going to be a little loud. Can somebody, let's see.
I muted you, Nancy. Can you lower the camera a little bit for this? I've got you muted, but somebody asked if you could lower the camera. Nancy, you can unmute yourself now. You're muted.
Okay, there you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
So I'm just rinsing my bullet. Can you hear me now, everybody? Thumbs up. Yes. I'm rinsing my bullet because even though these ingredients are all going to end up together, I want to put them in pure. So I'm going to take, since these Jerusalem artichokes are quite large, I'm going to use 1.5. Or maybe I'll just use, 1 3/4. So now I'm going to blend the Jerusalem artichoke. Okay, you can use any sort of blender. I just really like this one, this bullet, because it's kind of just the right size. And any big pieces you can either redo or take out, because you want basically all of the shreds to be just about the same size. So now I'm going to rinse it. So if this was a TV show, probably we'd have three bullets, but this is real life. So I only have one. I do have a Vitamix, but I really prefer the bullet for this. So what I'm going to do with the fennel is, as you can see, the root, the bottom is a little dark. I'm just going to trim it. And then I'm going to cut it into 2 pieces. And cut each of them. Place it in the bullet. Now, people also use the top of fennel to season food. These, it's considered an herb, these very sort of ferny pieces. Okay. So what I love about this latke, aside from the fact that it's not potato, so potato, has a lot of starch. It's a food that's, it's a nightshade. So it's not good if you have any kind of arthritic condition. So all 3 of these are much drier and less starchy than potato. So if you make a potato latke, and I'm sure many of you have, you've noticed that you need to strain it and strain out the starch, or else it just becomes too wet. These, the fennel is, it's a little bit crunchy, but all 3 of these are relatively dry. So we don't need to drain them at all, which is great. Okay, so I have my 3 vegetables, the Jerusalem artichoke and the parsnip and the fennel. And now I'm going to take a big bowl and I'm going to crack an egg. Sorry, there's one more vegetable we need to do. We're going to get scallion ready. So I also love the fact that I created this latke with a scallion rather than an onion. Most potato latkes are made with onion. So I'm just going to trim the root from the scallion. So a scallion is an allium, just like onions, garlic, shallots, and I'm just going to take the outer layer off. And then, so many of you know, I'm sure, that there is a way to cut a vegetable, each vegetable, that gives you the most, makes the nourishment, the vitamins and minerals in it most accessible and digestible to you. And the way to cut a scallion is on the bias. So I'm going to start at the root, and I'm just cutting it into these beautiful ovals. See? So I'm just going to cut the whole scallion. I really love putting the green in as well. And I'm going to cut it into these thin ovals. And then I'm going to chop them the way I would chop an herb, because we really want the tang of the scallion to infuse the whole batter. So can you see? Can everybody see okay? So I'm just going to cut this the way I would cut an herb, where I'm leaving the point or the nose of my knife in one place, and I'm just chopping the scallion. Okay, so now we're ready to combine all the ingredients, and we're going to begin with the egg so that we can check to make sure that it's kosher. So I'm using an actual chicken egg, but you can use a chia egg, a vegan egg, or a flaxseed egg. I have that in the recipe. So this looks totally clear, totally kosher. I'm just going to clean my whisk, and I'm going to add the sea salt. So I call for a half a teaspoon of medium grade sea salt for this. And I'm just going to eyeball it. Here's my medium grade sea salt, but you should measure if you so desire. So I'm going to whisk the egg and the sea salt together. Now I'm going to add the other ingredients one at a time. So I'm going to add, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the parsnip, because that grows the lowest into the ground. And then I'm going to add the Jerusalem artichoke. And then I'm going to add the fennel. And then I'm going to add the scallion. There's one more ingredient, which is just a 1/4 cup of flour. So you can use gluten-free flour or spelt flour. I thought about maybe trying barley flour, since in the days of the Maccabees, that's flour that they used. But for this, I'm just going to use spelt flour. And I'm just going to sprinkle it on top. And then I'm going to take a wooden spoon and mix it all together. So you want, the good thing is you can see the various colors mixing together. So this batter is, I would say it's less moist than a typical breakfast pancake, but more, a little less moist maybe than a cake batter, but more moist than a cookie batter, and much more moist than a bread batter. So as you can see, I've mixed everything together. And there we go. So these are ready to go. You can also season with a little pepper, you know, to taste. What we're going to do now, in the interest of having everything ready at the same time, is we are going to set aside the batter and move on to the gelt, so that the gelt will be ready for everyone to eat when we finish the class. Okay, is everybody with me? Am I going am I going too fast, too slow? Malka's giving me
I'm
thumbs up.
not getting any complaints, so I guess everything's
No,
good.
but let me just tell you, Nancy,
Yeah,
only 2 or 3 people are cooking, but also it's 10 after 5, so your timing is, you've got some leisure.
okay, got some room to move.
Yes, you do.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so so I'm going to set this aside, and now we're going to move into the gelt. So I'm just going to clean my mise en place, because I'm going to do the gelt on my cutting board. So I don't want any remnants of scallion or parsnip or even Jerusalem artichoke. Okay, so let me just give you, so there's one more teaching that I wanted to bring, which is about the light. So as we know, the oil burned for 8 days rather than the 1 day that that it should have. So we like to eat foods that symbolize this light in some way. And I always say that no matter what kind of latke you make, when you fry it, it's going to be darker, more golden on the outside and light on the inside. Unless, of course, you know, you were to use, I don't know, some very dark ingredient. But if you use potato or cauliflower or these vegetables, the outside is going to be darker than the inside. So I think of it as a symbol of whenever there's darkness surrounding, there's still light inside. As long as there's light inside of us, there's hope. And this is one of the messages of Hanukkah. So the gelt we're going to make out of chocolate. Chocolate is dark, unless of course you're using white chocolate. But we're going to start, so I tend to get this either a 60% cacao. These are Ghirardelli baking chocolate bars. This one's semi-sweet. I've mixed 3 here. I have a 60% and 100%. So with the gelt, we're going to have darkness as the foundation or the background, but we're going to send light into the darkness, into the gelt we make. So the way we're going to do this is you're going to, if you have a double boiler, then you know what to do. You only fill the bottom with 1 to 2 inches of water. I'm doing the bain-marie method, which is basically a slow melt. So I filled this skillet about halfway with water, and I'm going to heat it up. So with a bain-marie, you don't put the chocolate in with the water, with the flame on. You bring the water to a roiling boil, and then you turn the flame off, and you put the chocolate or whatever you're melting on top. So I'm just going to quickly rinse my bowl that I used for the yogurt. And then I'm going to get it ready with the chocolate. And at the same time, I'm going to make sure that I have all of my toppings ready, because the chocolate melts and then it's kind of a quick process before it hardens at this time of year. At this point, does anybody have any questions or thoughts or?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat room, so I guess everybody's following you pretty easily.
I'm just
Nothing
wondering-
in the chat.
I asked a question in the chat, which I don't know. Anyway, so you talked about it was important to grate the 3 vegetables separately in order to put them in pure. And I guess I don't understand that, since they were going to be mixed.
Right, right. So, why do we eat different people eat what's on their plate in a different sort of order when it's all ending up in the same place, right? There's that. And I like to compare it to a painting, to painters who may, depending upon what medium they're working in, the colors may end up mixing on the canvas or on the paper, but you generally want to put them in pure, right? You generally want to maintain the integrity of each color before it mixes in with the others, unless of course you mix it ahead of time, which is kind of what we're doing when we put the latkes into the pan and they become latkes. So, cooking is all about transformation. We're always taking ingredients and transforming them into something edible, but often they take on a whole new form. When you bake a cake, you take solids and liquids that go in as solids or liquids, and then they become something new. They become a batter, something that's somewhere between a solid and a liquid. That's particularly true of bread, of course, and challah. We bake challah. When we bake challah every week, we think of it as a transformation, as a way of elevating our souls on Shabbat, and as a way of transforming ourselves into this being that's more soul than body on Shabbat. The rest of the week, it's more physical.
We had a question in the chat, Nancy. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What do you recommend to substitute for fennel?
So that's a tough one. I mean, it has the same texture as celery in a way. Whenever I'm making a soup, sometimes I substitute celery for fennel. In this latke, I can't give you any guarantees because I haven't tried it, and I never teach anything that I haven't tried. But I think in terms of the texture and the celery might work. I don't know. In a way, I might use celeriac. I might use celery root rather than the stalk of the celery, because
Nancy,
the stalk of the celery is more watery.
Rabbi John is recommending onions or carrots.
So, I do a latke with carrots, but I do use onion with it. Look, you can try it. I really, I urge you to experiment, but I urge you to experiment, when you're alone or just with your family with willing tasters, because I can't guarantee it. I think onion would work, Rabbi John. It would just become a little tangier. The fennel fennel has the taste of licorice. So it gives it a certain sweetness. And of course, onions, anything in the allium family, when cooked, becomes sweet. So yeah, you could try that.
The other question I see is, can you grate larger rather than smaller, like a coarser grater?
Yes. Okay, so that's a great question. You can. It becomes a little bit of a different latke. I love this latke grated really fine because of the subtlety of the flavors. But you could use a box grater and use like the medium grade, more like you would do with potatoes, and then you would have those kind of shreds that would give it a lot more texture when cooked. And it would be delicious, but you want to be really careful to mix everything well in that case, so that you don't get one latke that's full of parsnip and another that's heavier on the Jerusalem artichoke. But I really encourage you to experiment. I can guarantee this one. I can't guarantee how it's going to taste. And also you have to think about the moisture. This is also chemistry, right? So cooking is part art, part science. And in this case, it's a little like baking. It's a lot of science. It's a lot of chemistry. So you want to you want to make sure it's going to have the right consistency. But Rabbi John, one thing you could do is if you do use the onion and it creates more moisture, you could add a little bit more flour. Yeah. So zucchini is very wet. The zucchini, you know, has a lot of moisture, and when I've created a latke with zucchini this year with red lentils, but you really have to press it and strain it. Otherwise, it's going to be too watery. But you know, it's all delicious. It's just a question of finding the right balance. Turnips are tough to work with, but could be used after boiled for a while. Yeah. So to tell you the truth, I've tried to create a really delicious latke from turnips, and I haven't really succeeded because I think it might be more delicious as kind of a croquette, you know, like a mashed up kind of thing. My husband is Iraqi and he really loves boiled turnips, so we eat them a lot, but I haven't succeeded in creating a turnip latke that he enjoys. So you're gonna take your chocolate, you're gonna watch your bain-marie, and you're waiting for the water to boil. If you're using a double boiler, same. So you just wanna, you know, break the chocolate into small pieces. And again, you want to make as much as you need. If you're feeding a lot of people, you might make a larger batch. So what we're going to do is we're going to melt the chocolate, and then we're going to use toppings that are symbolic of different midot. So I used midot from the classic Musar practice. And with Malka, we picked 4. Patience, salvanut, gratitude, hakarat hatov, compassion, rachamim, and enthusiasm, zerizut. So the tradition gelt means money in Yiddish, and there's a tradition of giving charity on all Jewish holidays. And there's also a tradition of gifting money on Hanukkah. So I thought it would be nice to think about qualities that you want to send as a message to somebody that you gift this to, or qualities that you want to embody and embrace more of for yourself. So I'm watching my water and it's beginning to boil, but I want it to be roiling, boiling before I put the chocolate in. And so I listed different ingredients that will embody different characteristics. So for patience, and I have them all ready to use because the chocolate in the winter in a cold kitchen like this, the chocolate hardens, not that fast, but it hardens fast. Now, if you have one, you can also use, I have this Korean, you know, those Korean ice cream roll-ups that they do. They mix all the ingredients on this frozen sheet and then they roll them into spirals. So I use this for chocolate making this, not necessarily gelt, but chocolate in the summer, because it immediately freezes. But you have to work really fast if you use this. But should you have one, it's a good tool. So I'm just going to take, for patience, nuts, sage. So the reason I chose nuts for patience is because nuts feed the brain with both fat and protein. So fat and protein are brain food. And in order to have patience, you need to really use your brain and think about it. And this is a beautiful sage plant that I got. It's kind of got variegated leaves. Maybe you could see them. So sage, the herb, it supports memory and brain health. And of course, there's the play on the word sage. You need to be wise or sagacious to be patient. And then I suggested lavender because lavender supports the immune system. It promotes calmness and wellness. And I got this beautiful edible lavender plant. So with lavender, you want to be sure that it's edible if you use the leaves, but you can always use an edible lavender oil. So these are the 3 ingredients for patience, salvanut. And I encourage you to, once the chocolate melts, to create any shape that you want. So I did a little sample, and for patience, I made a clock. So I made a round face of a clock, and I used almond slivers for the numbers, and I used lavender and sage for the hands on the clock, because patience is about rhythm and understanding timing. And then I made another one that was simply more symmetrical, about balance and space. So my bain-marie is now boiling. The water's boiling, so I'm going to place the chocolate inside, turn off the flame, place the chocolate inside, and it's going to melt slowly. So these are so you should have chosen either one or more midah to embrace. And the next one is gratitude. So I thought that we could use nuts. I have some almonds and also some pistachio nuts that are really pretty to use. Dried figs. So the nuts, again, for gratitude, one needs to be aware. So nuts feed the brain. These are dried figs, which improve. Figs are really good if you have insomnia, by the way, but they improve the magnesium and the potassium and the calcium in them. Bring on calm, which is important for gratitude. One must step back and be aware of what we're grateful for. And again, I suggested sage, again, because of its wisdom. And
Nancy,
so then,
Nancy, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
How do you know edible from non-edible lavender? How would you know that? When
How
buying
does
it?
one know? So it should be labeled. I got this from Ghiberti's Herb Farm in Westport, Connecticut, and they label which ones are edible and which ones are ornamental, or used for the fragrance.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You can also use an edible lavender oil, just drops of it, but it won't be as visual. So I'm just going to test my chocolate. I'm noticing it's melting beautifully, so I'm going to let it keep going. So for gratitude, I made this kind of lacy piece, because one has to have an open heart in order to be grateful. And I put some sage and some nuts and some figs on it. I don't know, can you see it? So it's really fun to make lacy shapes with the chocolate. And the next one is compassion, rachamim. So we think of, so I suggested you use pomegranate seeds, because pomegranate seeds are, in Judaism, pomegranate is a symbol of a fruit that has a hard skin on the outside, and its juiciness and goodness is on the inside, as we should all aspire to be. So if you are compassionate, you're good on the inside. And so I called these pomegranate seeds. And also I thought the color red, the color of blood, the color of the heart, heartfelt is always red. I also have dried cranberries. You could use dried cherries, again, for some more redness. And coarse sea salt, because sea salt, all salt, and particularly sea salt, draws out, right? So if we're compassionate, we want to draw out our compassion, and we also draw out the goodness of others. And the other ingredient I suggested is orange zest. So I have a zester here and an orange, and I can just create some orange zest. Again, you could use lime or you could use lemon, but I thought the orange would be nice for this, for compassion, because it's a bit sweeter. Its zest is a bit sweeter. So I'm just gonna place that here. And the fourth midah is enthusiasm, zerizut. Oh, and so this is the sample I did for compassion. So I shaped the chocolate in the shape of a heart, and I put the red pomegranate seeds and cranberries, dried cranberries, and sea salt and orange zest. Maybe you can see. Okay. And the fourth one is zerizut, or enthusiasm. So I thought it should be very energetic. And I made one in the shape of a flame. And I really kind of covered it with nuts and coconut flakes, shredded coconut, and crispy rice cereal for, you know, snap, crackle, pop, and lots of energy and coarse sea salt to draw that out. And then I did one with just a ton of energy in the chocolate. I just kind of created this big whipped up lacy shape. So, so let's do some together. You want to take a piece of, I have something ready over here. You want to take a piece of parchment paper. I set up a little board here. You can put it right on your board or set yourself up. You can set it also on a cookie sheet is a good, you just want a flat surface. And I have a little chopstick here. So my chocolate looks like it's almost all melted. Yeah. And I'm just, you can, as I said, you can use whatever you like. I'm going to use a teaspoon and maybe this chopstick. So you can see it's nice and soft. And the other thing I do a lot is I do Hebrew letters. So, you know, you could use the first letter of the midah. I'm not sure, is salvanut a sin or a samech? I'm sure Malka would know. Do you know, Malka? Or somebody with good Hebrew?
I think it's a samech. And
It's a samech.
Okay, so we can make a samech. I think I'll do that.
John Haddon is saying Samich also.
Sorry,
John Haddon agrees that it's Samich.
it's not a samech, it's a sin.
It is Samich. It is
Oh, it is
Samich.
samech. Okay, so I made a samech with the center is kind of hollow, and we don't want it to be hollow. We don't want any of our qualities to be hollow. So I'm gonna fill it in. And then I'm just gonna drizzle some nuts, and I'm gonna take a piece of edible lavender and just kind of break it up. And I'm gonna take one of these beautiful variegated sage leaves. I've never seen sage like this, and just kind of spread it across the top. So that's my kind of samech. Gratitude, hakarat hatov. I thought about doing praying hands or a tipped hat. I'm sure some of you are artists, and you might be more adept at this than I am. So maybe I'll make a hay for hakarat hatov. Whoops. So you get, you know, it's, again, it's a practice, just like anything else. And I'm going to put some dried figs. Some nuts, some almonds. And a little bit of sage. here. So there I have a hay. So kids really love this. They really go crazy with this. You know, you can create any shape you like. And then rachamim, compassion. So I think since I'm on this letter kick, I'll just make a resh. Okay. And I'm going to cover it with red and orange with warmth. So a little bit of the orange zest and some beautiful pomegranate seeds that are nice and juicy, as compassion is, and it gives you a feeling of goodness inside. Okay, so there's my resh for rachamim. And the last one is zerizut. I think I'm gonna, for this one, I'm not gonna do a letter. I'm just gonna make it like really, really energetic. You can make it really big and lacy. There we go. And for that one, I'm gonna do like a riot of sea salt and coconut, shredded coconut, and nuts. I'm gonna take some of these pistachio nuts. And there you go. So it's kind of just like a riot of different textures, different shapes, different colors, as enthusiasm is. Okay, so now I'm gonna set this aside in a cold place. For those of you who are working from Northwest Connecticut, that should be really easy to find. I just, actually, if you have a porch, if you put it right outside on your porch, it'll just like freeze in a minute. So some people, and when I teach this in the summer, when it's not gelt, but it's something else, you know, you can put it in your freezer and it'll harden in just minutes. But at this time of year, I'm just gonna put it right here on my table and it will get nice and hard. So now we are going to fry up the latkes. And I'm going to take a different skillet, but cast iron as well. Cast iron is kind of like a, you know, a natural non-stick. And I'm going to heat up the pan really well, because when you fry latkes, you want to make sure you have a really hot pan. Oh, I think I forgot some crunchy cereal. I'm going to add that because my daughter loves that. Some puffed rice. And now, can you see my pan? Or should I move? Yeah, okay. So for the latkes, I'm going to use grapeseed oil because it's it's an oil with a really high smoke point. So if you're making a big batch, you can continue. You can keep adding oil, and it's not going to be rancid. You know, so in my macrobiotic training, one of my teachers, what can I say, mottos was fried, not baked, because he believes that fried food eaten in moderation is actually much healthier than baked food. Because baked food, when you bake food, you know, you dry it, and you're pulling some of the nutrients out and drying them. Whereas with fried foods, you're sealing them in. So, so I'm taking my batter, and again, you can choose to form these however you like. I kind of like to just put them in the pan and flatten them with my spatula. But if you wanted to make them more perfect and round, you could preform them on a plate and then put them into your oil. So one thing you do want to have is you want to have a brown paper bag to dredge them. Why brown paper? Because if you use regular white paper towels, they're probably treated, and you don't want to get chemicals into your latkes. So I'm heating up my pan for quite a while. Like when I do latkes, I heat it up for about 2 minutes. And then I'm gonna add the oil and I'm gonna continue heating it. So I have my spatula ready, I have my batter ready, I have my dredging paper ready, and I'm ready to go. So I'm gonna just wait until this pan is a little bit hotter. And then I'm gonna fry these up. And by the way, I'm sure many of you know, just as with potato latkes, you could fry them and maybe not fry them 100%, maybe fry them to 95%, and then reheat them in the oven when you're ready to eat. But you don't wanna, you don't want them to be dry. You want them to be nice and crispy and moist inside. So I actually prefer to reheat things in the pan. Okay, so any questions as we wait for?
There was a comment, Nancy. I thought it was a nice comment. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Your cooking style is like an avoda, a sacred process. The Kohanim Maccabees would be impressed.
Thank you, thank you. They were pretty impressive. But there was an issue. The issue with the rabbis, there's one of the theories as to why the Hanukkah story is not in the Torah, and it's only barely mentioned. Not the story, but the candle lighting is mentioned in the Talmud. One of the reasons is because the Maccabees were from the priestly tribe, and they wanted always to keep separate the priestly tribe and rabbis and learning and the spiritual side from the military political activist side. So Rabbi Arthur Waskow theorizes that one of the reasons the Maccabees were downplayed so much in our liturgy was because of this conflict, because you had a priestly tribe not only fighting, but then they ruled once they won. And this wasn't kosher for some people. So, and from what I've read, the issue, I'm just covering the pan with some grapeseed oil. The issue was that a lot of the Jews were Hellenized. So even though the Antiochus forbid observance of Shabbat, observance of kashrut, circumcision, some Jews were okay with that, and they admired the Hellenistic culture. So, so that became a big tension. Okay, so I'm just covering the pan with oil. I'm letting it heat up so that as soon as I put the latke batter in, it's going to begin to sizzle. And you can make them, as large or as small as you like, depending upon who you're feeding and what their tastes are and how you want to present them and what else you're serving with the meal. So this is like a really nice balanced meal with the string beans and the yogurt. So I'm gonna make them kind of medium size. So I'm just like putting some in the pan and then flattening them, giving them enough space to honor each other. Some people put a little bit of oil on their spatula if they're worried that that when they flatten the latke, it will stick. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not really worried. Okay. So do you want me to bring the camera over so you can see them kind of nested in the pan?
Yes, please.
Okay, so
A little closer to your right.
How's
There you
that?
go. There you go. A little further back. There you go.
good.
Yep.
Okay, so the way, so what you want to avoid when you're making latkes or really any fried food is you don't want to turn them over too many times. So you want to just be really aware. You want to always cook with awareness and kavanah and intention. You want to really notice when the edges become brown, because that's a clue that the side that's on the pan is brown enough. The more times you turn them, the more oily they're going to become. And it's kind of like, with sewing or creating anything, if you can get it right the first time. Not true of writing at all, I would say, but true of cooking in many ways. You want to try to get it right the first time. So I see that the first latke that I put into the pan is becoming a little bit brown. And by the way, these smell a lot like potato latkes. Now, the thing about potato latkes is, potatoes came from South America. Christopher Columbus brought them back. So it's a relatively new thing. And potatoes, because they're such keepers, became a really common food in Eastern Europe, where my ancestors are from, and many of our ancestors are from. But they weren't around, for the Romans or the Maccabees or in the Middle Ages, which is why I really love to experiment with other foods. But these now sizzling in the pan smell a lot like potato latkes. So if you have a connection to them, you might enjoy these. So I'm going to turn one over, and it's perfect. It's like really gorgeous, just golden. Can you see it? Let's see.
Yes, good, right there.
Yeah. So it looks a lot like a potato latke, not like one of those ones with a lot of shoestring, with a stringiness, a stringy texture, but it looks like a typical potato latke. So I'm gonna turn over the next one. Yep. Oh my gosh, the smell is amazing. And now, as you know, with pancakes, they just each batch begins to cook a little bit faster. So I'm going to keep going, but I wanted to tell you that I hope you'll buy my book. It's alphabetical. I go through the alphabet, and there's sometimes more than one vegetable per letter. But all of these vegetables, J is for Jerusalem artichoke, fennel is for F, and P, parsnip is for P, but there is a different recipe for each. And I also have some grain dishes. The idea is to introduce vegetables to your breakfast, but the recipes are great for any time of day. And I created a discount code for everyone on this call. If you order through my website, you get the book, and it comes with a plantable bookmark that becomes, it's made of lettuce seed paper. It becomes lettuce. So just go to my website, youarebecauseYoueat.com, and put in the code 8LIGHTS, the numeral 8 and lights. I also sell this apron that has the name of my company, You Are Because You Eat. You are because you eat, not you. You are what you eat, but you're also because you are because you eat. If you don't eat, you are not. And I also am selling a gift package. I'm just going to take these out and dredge them. I'm offering a gift box for just for Hanukkah and this holiday season that contains an apron, a book, and this beautiful hat. All three of these things were made during the pandemic. And this is a knit hat that comes in 4 or 5 different colors, hand knit by my neighbor who took up knitting during the pandemic. So it's $68, but it's like the value is like $80. Shipping is included on everything on my site. And that comes in a re-giftable box with a beautiful ribbon. So
Nancy, I put that into the
questions.
I put that into the chat, Nancy, so everybody should know that the
I'm going
information
to
is in the
finish doing
chat.
the rest of them later. I'm just going to plate these to show you how gorgeous it is on a plate. So I'm going to let it just sit for a moment, let any excess oil drain. and then place it on the plate with some of this delicious lemony yogurt sauce and some string beans. And there you go. Can everybody see?
Yes, it looks delicious.
Thank you. So let me taste it. And anyone who's cooking along, I'm curious if you want to share your chocolate gelt creations or your plate. Let's see, Malka. Gorgeous, gorgeous, beautiful. Yay. Did you make the gelt, Malka? You did. Okay. So I'm just going to taste this latke.
Nancy, for those of us who didn't cook along, are the recipes included with the ingredients, the instructions? I don't recall when you're finished chewing.
It's really important to chew.
The recipes were sent out last night and this morning with the Zoom link.
They were. Okay, I
Oh,
didn't check.
an email with the Zoom link. You have the recipes for all of these dishes.
Okay, great. Thank you,
The
Joe.
ingredients and the tools were in the earlier email that we
Right.
sent out. When
Nancy, Ivan has just showed a big plate of the chocolate. Ivan, do you want to show it again? We can make it
I'd love to
larger.
see it. Can you make it big?
Oh, that looks good.
Oh, I can't see. Hold on. Let me see if I can find Ivan. Oh, wow. Ivan, those are gorgeous.
Oh,
What did you make? What are those? Those are dreidels?
No,
And
that looks like a menorah.
wow, gorgeous. Beautiful. And the green, it looks like there's kind of a green border.
Ivan, unmute yourself so you can say what you did. I don't know. I don't know how to.
Okay, well, anyway, if you have, those look amazing, Ivan. They're gorgeous. I know you're an artist.
Oh, there he is.
hello.
He's unmuted. What did
Can you
you
hear
do?
me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, so I have actually some Italian parsley that was frozen from my garden.
Oh, wow.
And these are little cookie cutters from Hanukkah. And there's orange, mandarin rind, and there's pecans, and walnuts and almonds chopped up in there.
Gorgeous. And the dreidel, the one that's a dreidel, it looked like it had a lot of green. Is that the parsley?
Yeah, I don't know if they're entirely hardened yet. They're just hardening. They were in the refrigerator hardening.
Oh, wow. That is gorgeous. Yeah, beautiful. So, you can really use anything. You can use grapefruit zest. You can use crystallized ginger. Oh my gosh, that looks like a little painting on a Star of David.
Yeah.
Really gorgeous. Thank you. So anybody, if you have any, we need smell-o-zoom, somebody says. I agree. Yeah, like smell-o-vision. It's really hard teaching and not getting to taste anything, but the good news is you get to eat everything and share everything. And these are beautiful gifts, these chocolates. Oh, beautiful. Your salad, your string beans, gorgeous. Wow. Wow, really beautiful. Yeah, so in this time of, of not gathering, these are nice gifts to offer.
The latkes
Anybody
are
else?
delicious. The latkes are absolutely delicious. They're so different. They're nutty. They're light. They're light as air. They're really delicious, and the dressing is delicious.
Great. Did you use regular yogurt or goat gurt or?
I used regular yogurt.
Yeah. So there's a cashew yogurt. I think the brand is Forager, and I really love that one. But it's delicious. It seems to be delicious with whatever yogurt you use. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. My email is on my website under contact. Thank you for sending everything out, Jill. Anything else?
Well, I would just like to put another plug in for your book, which has really been getting a lot of interest in the press. And it's a really wonderful book. It's very joyful and entertaining, and the dishes are whimsical and delicious. And like that green bean, some of them are just so easy that you wonder why you didn't think of that ever. They're just so delicious and easy. So
there's only one dish that really is time intensive, and that's stuffed grape leaves. And I suggest, you do that on a Sunday or at on a day when you have a lot of time, and you freeze some of them and you eat them in, you stagger them, but you can make a nice big batch. And the other thing is you can subscribe to my blog. So my blog, Vegetables for Breakfast. The first year I did it, I blogged every day except on Shabbat and holidays. I just wrote the recipe for what I fed my family every morning, what vegetable dish I fed my family. And at the end of the year, I was getting a lot of feedback from my followers saying, wait, is this all you're eating? And I said, no, I always eat a whole grain and often a plant protein with it. So then I began showing the whole meal, and I post maybe once a month. But if you subscribe, you'll just get it in your inbox. I promise I won't flood your inbox. I only post once a month, and I'm not terribly adept at social media. So that's all it is. So I wish you all a beautiful, blessed Hanukkah, holiday of lights and of bringing the light inside.
Nancy, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance and your light with us and your incredible recipes and insights. Thank you so much. We're so happy to be together.
Thank
Yes,
you,
thank you, Nancy.
It was lovely.
Really great,
And
really great.
Margie for
Thank you, Margie and Carol.
co-hosting and recording.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Malka,
Thank you, Malka.
Malka,
Pleasure, yes.
Malka, it's Bill Ehrlich, and I just want to thank you for instigating this. It's really great, and we appreciate it. And I watched the whole thing, even though my face wasn't part of it. And I will be cooking up a storm. Those look fabulous.
Yeah.
Yay, yay.
I can't wait to make them.
Nancy, thank
Me
you
neither.
very, very much.
Hag Sameach.
Hag Sameach.
Hanukkah Sameach.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Elaine.